back to that line of work now, like I have a hard time going to, Ulta and getting my hair done now.
Right. And I had PTSD from like combat traumas prior to this. So, and it wasn't like, honestly, I was getting by with that, but I wasn't like really getting treatment. And then after this, it was like, okay, time to get treatment for the PTSD stuff, because it can be super disruptive.
Now, in our text messages on Facebook, you mentioned that there's some kind of a cult connection to this. He's connected to a cult. Is this his family you're talking about with the Christianity? No, there's more. Okay, there's more. What do you got there?
So basically, and I'm not going to go to all the details with the cult, but basically, we mentioned there was a female suspect who was never identified, and in the notes, it has some very specific, like, ideology, religious beliefs. So months later, we ended up getting a call from a woman, and this woman says, "Let me talk to the kids." And I say, "Who is this?" And she goes, "Let me talk to the boys." And I'm like, "No." And she hangs up. I'm like, okay, that was weird. But then Brittany went and reversed her phone number, found her social media, and she's part of this cult that shares many of the same ideologies that Ezekiel had. And then I got another call from another person in this cult, and he just says, "I didn't think you would answer," and he hangs up. And so I looked him up, and he has some very extreme ideologies and was also in this cult. So I started researching them quite a bit, and let's just say the more I find out, the more it seems likely. I went into it with a lot of skepticism, saying, okay, you know what, James, you're paranoid. This could just be a coincidence, could just be the wrong, maybe just a cult member accidentally called you. They meant to call someone else. But the more I look into it, the more it makes sense.
The more everything kind of lines up.
And during real quick, during the prosecution of this case, were you in contact with victim services? Were you telling them the depth of everything that went on?
I've been in contact with several law enforcement agencies and
victim services as well.
Victim services as well. Yes, they're very well aware of the scope of things going on. The problem is that even if they could link exactly, definitively, that Ezekiel's part of this cult, they can't, as law enforcement agencies, unless they can definitively prove conspiracy, meaning the cult said, "Hey Ezekiel, go attack the Campbell family or go attack these other people." They can't really do anything about it, because if you're going to, if you're going to a Christian church or a Buddhist temple or whatever, and one of the members of the congregation does something wrong, it doesn't implicate the rest of that group. So it's very difficult to prove conspiracy.
No, I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Now, how did you get involved with this Lifetime TV show, Phrogging, Hider in My House? They contacted you? You contacted them?
One day, just out of nowhere, my mom called me, and they had called the landline at my parents' house. I haven't lived with my parents in over 15 years, and they talked to my stepdad, and he was kind of like, I can neither confirm nor deny that I know Brittany. We had kind of told our family about some more stuff with the cult, and he thought it was someone from the cult, contacting them. So he ended up calling me, and he's like, "Hey, I didn't confirm that I even know you, but this lady gave me her number. I don't know if you want to call her. She says she's a producer." So I kind of Googled her name, and everything kind of checked out, and I contacted her. And that's what happened. They happened to be doing this TV show already, and then just we had done a news report when we were in Hawaii. KHON2 News contacted us, and we were on the news when everything first happened. Somehow this producer came across the clip from the news on YouTube and tracked me down.
And but they already had a storyboard.
Yeah, they already were. I guess Phrogging isn't really as rare as you'd think. It's something that happens to a lot of people, and it was an idea they already had. We weren't the first. I don't think we were even the first people they contacted. So we just happened to have a story that went along with the TV show they were doing.
Right. So they did a pre-interview for us, similar to what we're doing right now. So we had a phone conversation with them, and they kind of brought that back to their writers, and there's just certain aspects, that they're covering, because the whole show, Phrogging, the narrative is it's stories about people where other people live in your house. And so that checked out, that we checked those boxes. But then we have all the other weird stuff that went with the crime, and they're like, that is a that's a different TV show, and some of this stuff is not appropriate for our audience.
Well, also they were doing 2 people per episode. Our story could have been a whole 2-hour special just upon itself. They couldn't even fit in all the details into the small amount of time they had.
Has it aired yet?
Yeah, it aired in August or September. When did it?
Yeah, I think it aired August or September.
Are you happy with the results?
We haven't seen it.
I get a lot of anxiety. That's why, I do my YouTube videos and stuff, and I get a lot of anxiety talking about the situation a lot of the time. So it's hard for me to watch things about what happened.
No,
I'd say we were happy that it brought some attention to our story. Some of it's negative because, once you get somebody who sees that TV show, then they go take it and they'll turn it into their own story for their own narrative, and they haven't talked or spoken to us. That's redundant, but they haven't spoken to us, but they do a story, and then they add all this extra fluff, like maybe I heard when the sliding doors were closing and opening, I thought the wind knew it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I said that sarcastically on TV, but I don't, that's nothing that I ever thought. But
and then people see their version of the story, and then they think they know everything about the story.
And yeah, it becomes this big game of telephone. But really, we've only spoken to a couple people. Like, we spoke to the news initially. We spoke to Lifetime. We're speaking to you now, and we've spoken to like 2 other news agencies.
I did several radio interviews when the show first came out, but they were pretty brief, like maybe 15 minutes tops.
No, but the Lifetime TV show doesn't mention anything about the cult. Does it mention anything about the surgery and all that bizarre stuff and the body fluids and?
Maybe minimally.
I believe it does mention the surgery, and it shows some of the notes in the background, but it doesn't. But it does it quickly. So there's been a lot of people who have paused it, and they're like, "Wait a second, why wasn't this talked about?" Because it's right here.
And then I'll be getting people who are kind of playing detective, and they'll leave comments on my YouTube, and it's actually it's kind of interesting to me that people have pieced together a lot of information that we hadn't really released just from pausing it and reading the notes, and they see, okay, there's a bigger story here.
Right.
Oh, now what about, now this guy's still alive. Ezekiel Zayas is still alive, but he committed a murder while he was in prison?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff with fitness trials. James knows more about like the fitness trials and all that.
Right. So Ezekiel, he was initially released right away. Hawaii has a bail reform system, so he was released without paying any bail, even though we had pleaded with him that he's dangerous and trying to hurt our family. So they released him, and then I got upset, and that's when we blew it up on the news. He had left a 40-minute long video where he's naked and he draws a line down his face and shaves half of it and whispers that he knows nobody wants him to be there. So I sent that to the local news, and it blew up. And then the prosecutors were talking about, well, maybe we can consider different crimes that he committed, like he illegally accessed our electronic devices. That's a crime.
Yeah.
So they were talking about all that, but they didn't. While this is going on, he ended up robbing a Buddhist studies center.
For vandalizing it.
Yeah. He got charged with another burglary charge, basically. Okay. And so they arrested him, and then they held him. And I think they set the bail something he couldn't afford. I don't know. But he ended up being found unfit, and that was going on for years. And
then he was found fit.
Then he was found fit again, and then he was put into a COVID. He got COVID in jail and was put in a COVID holding cell. And he murdered his cellmate, this man named Vance Joy, I think his name is, right?
I know his name is Vance, his first name.
So it's this 60-year-old man, and this guy's been in and out of jail for years and years. I guess they must have had an argument, or I don't know what happened there, but he ended up stomping this man's head in, and the police there was a third person in the cell. The guard let that person out of the cell, and then they shut the door, and then they say the locking mechanism failed, and then Ezekiel stomps this man's head into death.
Wow. The man's name was Vance Grace.
Vance Grace. Vance Joy is the artist. It's Vance Grace. It's not Vance Joy, the I don't think he's a singer.
I've never heard of Vance Joy. But now, why do you think he targeted your family?
You know, we have a few ideas. One that I can't really discuss right now. Another, I think that he had one primary objective, and that's the thing that we can't really go into. But I think that there could have been other families that he was looking at, and what made us interesting to him was that Brittany had been a former model, and I was, before the military, I was a touring rock musician, and I'm not sure if we mentioned that. Yeah, we did. We mentioned that Ezekiel is a musician as well. So we had this music equipment there. And I mean, even one day